Hello everyone. Today we're going to work on sketching a simple ladies basic button front shirt. We want to start with getting our photographs bird's eye view on the page by shrinking them first in Photoshop and then entering them into your document here, and then have your callouts all ready. The other thing that you'll also want to have are your assets that you're going to need for the sketch. So in the case of this particular garment, we're going to need a lock stitch buttonhole here, and then we have 4 hole buttons. So we're going to go ahead and click on the board that we want to look at, Command 0 to bring it in close. We want to make sure that we have our layers set up. So we have our first layer with all the assets and our photographs on it, and then the next layer has the Illustrator assets that I placed on the page. It's going to have the sketch as well. So as usual, we're going to start up here in what would be the high point shoulder, and we're going to just come across, and we're going to make sure that always that we have a hook in the armhole here. This hook is really important, and this shelf section right in here, as that is where most of the fit comments will be once you start fitting garments. We can see that there's a slight shape to the waist here, so we're going to go ahead and drop an anchor there, and we're going to come back out, follow around to the front, center front here where our piece can go across, and make sure that our anchor points are even and our line is straight. So this is why you always want to have the grid in the background here, so that when you go to drop an anchor and you pull on the handles, that you end up with a perfectly straight line. Otherwise, when you go to mirror, it will create a slight pinch. So the reason that I start up here in this corner and not down here is so that my shape of the neckline can actually be here at the center front. So then I can easily turn my front into the back by, again, just pulling on this anchor and bringing it up. So I'm just checking with the grid in the background to make sure that my line looks straight, and there's the basic front. I'm going to go ahead and take the fill out so that we can see what's happening here with the pocket. I'm going to zoom in on the pocket, and I'm going to just start with the rectangular shape. So M is the shortcut to create a rectangle. That's about the overall width of my patch pocket aspect of the pocket. I'm going to put a anchor there right in the middle, and it tells me where the middle is with my smart finders on. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that down to give myself that bottom chevron there, and that's basically the shape of my pocket. So you always want to have your garments sitting right in front of you, so as you're doing the details of the sketch, you can just look right directly at the garment. So on the patch pocket, there is a edge single needle lock stitch. I'm going to move my stitch outside. I'm going to go ahead and change the point down to a 7.5 and add my dashed line. I'm going to just make it a 2 by a 1.5. You can make the dashed lines however you like. I'm going to go ahead and move that in. I know I'm going to have to shrink it, and obviously when you're copying and pasting straight and perfectly angled lines, it's easier to bring them in to what you need as opposed to curved lines, and we'll see that as we go. I'm going to go ahead and take that top part off that I don't need. I'm actually going to use it later, so I'll just delete that part that I don't need, but I copied and pasted it down there because I will be using it eventually. I'm going to drop my stitches there on the patch pocket so that they're not hanging out over the edge of the pocket. Okay, so that is my patch part of the pocket. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my pocket flap on top. So I can see that my pocket flap is approximately 1/4 of an inch higher. Pocket flaps always should be slightly wider than the outside sketch so that your patch pocket never shows. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in and make it more precise there. I can see that's better, and that the height is more or less here. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn it into just the solid line. We'll fill it later. And start adding some anchors. So for sure I need the anchor here at the middle, which is going to bring it down. So I added the anchor there. Now I'm just going to use the A tool to bring it down to this point. And I can see here that the pocket flap has a curve, a slight western curve. So I'm just going to use the shortcut of Shift C. It's going to allow me to curve that line right up to where it looks like it is on the garment, and I'll just do the same thing on the other side. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and fill this piece so that we can add the top stitch to it. So here we have the overall outline shape. We look at the pocket flap, and we can see that along the bottom edge, again, we have the single needle lock stitch that is on the edge. So this part here, I don't need. These are going to need to be dropped down, so I'll just go ahead and drop them down a smidge here. And go ahead and pull that up into my patch pocket flap. And squeeze it into the edge. Now you just want to make sure that you're always consistent with what you're saying an edge stitch is. So I can see now that on this flap I've gotten so close to the edge, it's literally on the edge. So I need to make sure that it looks exactly like my flap. The patch pocket aspect. So I'm going to go ahead and make that slightly smaller so that I can get it more to look like what it looks like down here. Okay, so we have a little bit of space between the stitch and the edge, and let's just make them a nice perfect match. That looks better. Okay, so there is the flap part of the pocket. When you look at the flap application stitch, you can see that it is 1/4 inch down from the top. And on this particular garment, there are no bar tacks, so we don't have to worry about putting bar tacks. Typically, you would have bar tacks here on the outer corners. But this shirt does not have it. It just has what's called a typical back stitch when you don't have bar tacks. And the last thing that I can see on the flap that I need to have is the button and the buttonhole. So I've taken my lock stitch buttonhole and my button, and I've already scaled them up to what it looks like on the garment. Then I put the two together and group it. And I'm just going to keep copying this one piece. I'm going to click on the piece that I want it to be on, and when I hit Control V, it's going to place it right in the on top layer of that flap. I need it to be vertical. So here we can go ahead and put it in, and typically the side that's showing the excess buttonhole is on the top. So there we have our pocket for the front of the shirt. I'm going to group it, shortcut Control G. When I look up here at my shoulder forward on this garment, I can see that it's actually just more forward at the armhole than it is at the neckline. So I'm going to copy that outline that I need here. I'm going to add an anchor point where I need my shoulder forward to be. Get rid of the other part of the line that I don't need. And I can go ahead and make that a shape by just closing it up. I'm going to come a little bit shy, because when you look at the garment when it's laid flat, it's about 1/4 inch forward at the actual neck, and again, what more shoulder forward at the actual armhole. So let's go ahead and put that on top. So that is our shoulder forward from the back. We're going to cover it here with the collar stand eventually, so it can either be a perfect match up here or not, because we will cover it. So we're going to zoom in to see, let's get that more on the front body there. Okay, so the next thing we can do on this sketch is the front placket. So we can go ahead with our square tool, M, and make a nice long rectangular shape. Now this is one of those things that you're going to fine tune as you see when you're sketching over bird's eye views. Not always do you take the picture perfectly straight, lay it down perfectly straight. You're just going to modify it accordingly, but we can see that the width was approximately that. We also can see that on the sides of both of these plackets is the 1/4 inch single needle lock stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and grab onto my stitch that I already have on the page with the eyedropper tool, shortcut I, and I'm going to go ahead and move this into place. I know I'm going to have to make it smaller. It's going to need to be 1/4 inch on each side, and you'll get to a point where you can just start to eyeball it. So I've already basically called out what I'm saying 1/4 inch is up here on this top part of the pocket. So everything else on this sketch should look pretty close to identical to that. So I can see this side does, and then I'll just go ahead and move that piece in a little bit. That looks pretty symmetrical on both sides, so I'm going to group it. I'm also going to group the front body. I forgot to do that. Control G. So let's go ahead and move this. Let's fill this, and then we'll put the button. Well, let's put the button first. So I've already grouped the pocket, so the button's already grouped there. I'm going to grab it again over here. Control C. Grab on the placket that I want it to be on. Control V, because then it'll put it right above. I want it to be a vertical placed lock stitch buttonhole, so I'm going to make it vertical, and then I'm going to place it right in the middle here where the first button is. I'm going to hit Alt to duplicate. You can see that double arrow shows up, and I'm going to duplicate it to the next position that it needs to be in, which is right here. I can go right over the picture. Now once I've done that, I can just hit Command D, and it'll keep repeating that button down. 1, 2, 3, I only had 3 more buttons because I have a total of 5 buttons at the center front placket. You can see they've gone down perfectly spaced, so that is a nice technical flat. Let's go ahead and fill it so we can see what it looks like. That looks good. Next thing we're going to add is underneath the collar stand. We can see it back here in the picture. It's pretty high. We're going to try to follow the shape at the front neckline here as good as we can. Come back over to here, and then it's about that tall. When we go to measure it, it's approximately 1¼ or so. So I'm going to come up pretty high up here to be 1¼ Give that front edge shape that's on the typical collar stand, and then just make sure that this rest of the shape looks about the same size because the collar stand is 1 height all the way around. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that, duplicate the shape, the Alt key. Let's go back to the selection tools and move it away. Eyedrop onto the element that I want on the page, which was my single needle edge stitch there, and move it into place. Now you already know by now that it's a little bit harder to make these shapes match up identical. So we're going to have to mess around with some of the anchors here at the top once I get part of it into place. There we go. So we're going to zoom in so we can manage it better to see where our anchor and our stitch is going to land. And move that up into where it's going to look better. We're going to have to play around with those curve tools. And let's get this into place. So now we can play around with this anchor and move it to follow the edge like we've done in the other areas of the garment there, edge of the pocket. So we're going to group this together. We know that we need a buttonhole. I can grab the one from the placket there, click where I want it to be on top of, Control V, and then put it in the position that it needs to be in, which actually is going to be on the other side, so I'll wait till I duplicate over. So actually it does open on this side. So a lady's shirt opens on this side, so we're going to put it right there. It's pretty much in alignment with the center front one. Okay, so we're going to have to make sure that this is on the top when we go to duplicate everything over to the other side. So let's go ahead and group this all. We could minus out the placket though, because we don't need that part. We don't need any of the buttons to be mirrored. We just needed the body and the collar stand. So we're going to go ahead and mirror that 0 and then hit Alt, put your anchor somewhere in the middle, and then we want to copy it vertically over to the other side. We just want to make sure that up here at the top that the collar stand is right equal with the front placket here, and then we're going to drop it to the back. Shift Command back bracket, or you can do it this way, edit layers, arrange layers. Okay, so now we've got basically underneath this collar shirt, a Peter Pan collar shirt, and now we're going to do the collar. So we're going to come out approximately to here where we can see this collar has quite a bit of shape in here, so I'm going to go ahead and put an anchor there. And then come up to the middle because all shirts are ending and meeting in the middle. When you buy them new, they should be flush there at the top of the collar. Let's go ahead and fill that shape. And then we can see by looking at our garment that we have a 1/4 inch single needle lock stitch there along the edge. So we're going to get rid of the parts that we don't need. Let's go ahead and drop our shape into what looks like a quarter at the point. And then there's 2 ways. We can either add an anchor like this and then delete the part that we want, and it won't change the shape at all. In the case of this side here, we can see that we're going to need to adjust the shape slightly. So let's bring this anchor down and in. It's a little too low there. Come up just slightly, and then now we have this curve here that you can see is not so great on the original piece, so let's just perfect it here by making this notch. It's a little bit better. Okay, so there is our curve shape collar, and let's group that together. So now we're just going to mirror that over to the other side. It's already lined up, and the next thing we're going to add is our back collar. So we're going to go ahead and sketch pretty much what we see here in the front and just add a small shape back here so that we can try to cover the back collar stand when we go to do the back of the sketch. Come up to the top, close the shape. We can see that we need to add our collar stand to it. So I'm going to go ahead and add some anchor points up here, which is approximately the 1.25" that is there. I'm using my grid there. I'm going to go ahead and delete those pieces that I don't need and then come back down and give myself the nice round curved collar stand that's on me now. When I look at the collar stand, I can see that on the top there is a edge single needle, and on the bottom it's a double needle. So I didn't make a double needle brush yet for this garment. I don't think we knit it just for one part of the garment that's a double needle. So, oh, whoops, I forgot to save the shape, the under shape. I have to do it again up here. Add those couple of anchors. Delete the part that you don't want. And close the shape. Try to make it look like it's about the same height. It's kind of a little bit higher on this side here. Let's drop that down a tad. Put it where we're going to want it, which is back here. And then now I want to make sure that these stitches are going to be on top. I'm going to add this one up to the top there. You can see that I didn't recreate the shape perfectly. And then this one at the bottom, which I don't want it to hang out over the side, so I might have to shrink it slightly so it doesn't hang out the side. And then I'm going to duplicate it for my 1/4 inch double needle that's at the bottom of this collar stand on the garment. Let me just get rid of the piece that I don't want there. Okay, so this I am going to reshape this to match my original shape, which looks like it was better than the second one. So let's just come down to there. And this was definitely an edge stitch, so I'm going to still have to adjust this slightly so that it looks more like everything else that I have with an edge stitch. Okay, so there's my back collar stand. So I can go ahead and grab all of these elements and group it, grab it with my back and send it to the back. So there's my back collar. Now if I don't like these little pointy things up here, this is where I control that, it's right here. But that's really here on the collar. So I can go in there and get rid of those funny points there that I don't like. Okay, and then now here we have basically the front of the garment. We're not going to put the label or the branding. So the next thing that we can see that we would need to finish up this front sketch is the hem. So we're going to grab these two pieces here. You can see that the bottom is not meeting in the middle, so let's go ahead and move those anchors so that they're centered, so that when we go to do the back and add the stitch, it'll be easy to do. It's in the middle where it should be. There's the middle. There's the middle there. And then we're going to take those two lines and we're still not perfect. And Control C, Control V. We're going to join them with Control J, that joins it. And then now we can go ahead and grab on our single needle stitch there. I'm going to get rid of one of these anchors. We don't need them both. Looks like now we have to reshape. That was because I didn't have the anchors where they should have been when I dropped the front sketch. Okay, so now here's our hemline. When we look at our hemline, we can see that we have a 1/4 inch. Something happened down here, obviously, when I was trying to match it up. So let's get that fixed. And we don't want stitches ever to be floating outside of your sketch. So let's get that anchor in. Okay, so there's the front body. Next thing we're going to work on is the sleeve. And we'll start with the sleeve that's straight by just outlining it generally. There is a slight bump there, but it's just because I wasn't able to lay it perfectly flat. There's our collar join seam, and I'm going to come down here because I can see this is approximately where it is when you try to lay it out a particular way so that you don't have to, you can make the arm, the muscle POM look realistic. We can go ahead and drop this to the back of the sketch and fill the front and then it won't show. We don't have to match up this seam there. There are no top stitches anywhere. There are no tucks or pleats at the cuff. So this is a fairly simple garment. We're just going to go ahead and make our cuff the approximate shape and height that we need. We can go ahead and twist that into place. Let's see that I want a little bit narrow on the body part of the sleeve, so I'm going to go ahead and match this bottom part more up with my cuff that I just put there. Okay, so there is that sleeve. Now when we go to do this sleeve, to make sure that they're the same length, we're going to go ahead and mirror over this sleeve. We're going to mirror it over to the other side, and then we'll cut it in half, and it will be the exact size that we need it to be. We need it to be in the back. Let's go ahead and zoom in and make sure that top position is in the same spot that it is on the other side, just here. Now we can zoom out, and we're going to cut it right here. This is where we want, where we folded the sleeve down. So I want to try to use the grid in the background to make that line straight. And then I'm going to go ahead with the shape builder and divide these shapes with the Pathfinder, sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and divide those two shapes. Then I can ungroup them. And then grab these, flip those, and then let's just flip those to the other side. Move our shape in, and now we have the exact same sleeve length that we have on the other side. So let's zoom in so we can make sure we place it like in a nice spot up here on the corner there. And then now when we look at, let's go ahead and clear this fills out so that we can see what the cuff opening looks like here. So we can see that we need to first repeat this shape right here. It's been grouped, so let's just go ahead and grab it and delete the part that we don't want. Just on this piece here, I'm going to go ahead and use that. Do I have any? Yeah, because I do have an edge single needle stitch up here. So let's grab on my single needle. Just move it in so that it's consistent on the top, on the bottom. The stitch is a little bit angled right now. So there is the edge, and then I'm going to repeat the shape. And I can see that my cuff spout split in half. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab these anchors, go about halfway in, and then move the whole thing down. And this is the one that will get the button hook and the button on it. So let's go ahead and make sure that that's going to work. This needs to be on the top stitch here, so let's move it to the front. And then now I need to grab a button, Control C, click on the one layer I want it to be on, Control V. You can see my button in the picture is a horizontal positioning button. And there's two of them, so I'm going to go ahead and just center them there and there. And that's approximately how far away they look from the edge. And go ahead and group this whole thing now and put that just right on top there. You can go ahead and fill the back as well. Sleeve back to the fill. Oh, I have that placket. I have this inside binding there, which we'll add by just putting flush with the cuff opening a little line here that's indicating that it's a clean finished inside send out for the placket. So we're going to make that this kind of a arrow profile line. So let's kind of thing that you would use for a tuck. So I'm going to make that, because I made it that type of line, it's a little bit skinny, so I'm going to make it wider so that it matches up a little bit more with the outline that I've used. Maybe a 1, 3, 5 would be best. Okay, so there's my indication of the sleeve internal binding. I can go ahead and fill, I'm going to make sure that one's at the top. Fill, and now we have our front Basic Ladies fitted shirt. Let's just go ahead and fill in this, and then we'll do the back real quick. I'll drop on having it be filled. So we grab these two shapes, copy them. They're going to have to meet up here, so we need to come in slightly on both of them. You can see the empty spot in the middle there. So that was 3. Let's go 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's just do 4 because they have to be overlapping to build a shape. And we can grab on both of them. We don't want it to be grouped though with the other one, so let's make sure that it's separate. There it is by itself. So Control Shift M is our shape builder. You can see that there isn't a perfect shape build, so we're going to go back in and delete this part. And then this is the part that we want to just move to the top so that we can get it to match when we go to drop it in the back for our back. So I'm going to just go ahead and copy that, put it in behind, and make sure that it's in the back. So when I go to do the fill here, I would just make it a lighter fill than the front. Okay, I don't need that one. Okay, so to make the back, it's pretty simple. We're just going to grab the entire front, mirror it over to the other page where we have the back picture. You can see that it's dropped the right sleeve down. And the only difference on this sketch, there's a few things. Let's go ahead and zoom in on it. Obviously we don't need the pockets anymore, but they've kind of gone in the back anyway. So we need our sleeves to be back in the background. Send them to the back. We don't need our pocket. We don't need any of these buttons. We don't need the collar. We don't need the collar stands. And we don't need this part of the collar. We don't need the front body there or the front body here. We just need the back body. We don't need the shoulder forward anymore. So when we look at the back of this shirt, there's actually no back yoke seam. So this is fairly simple to make the back. All we have to do is add the stitch on the back collar there and flip the two cuffs, because when you flip the garments, this ends up on the other side, which is over on this side. And the opening is at the bottom. The opening is on this side, so let's just flip that little curl the other way. And we'll just leave it there, that's fine. And then let's move that back on top here. And actually I think this sleeve, now that we have this part of it, it's going to look better in the background. So let's arrange that to the back. Now we need to add that top stitch there that's at the that's here on this side. So let's get that in the cuff there, and so we don't have to mess around with the layer. Let's just bring it in. You know that it's under there. Okay, and then now let's just make sure this is hidden underneath there, so that looks okay, except for this corner is peeking out. Let's get that inside. And then the last thing that we needed to add was this, stick this on the outside of the collar here, which is a 1/4 single needle. Put it in place there, 1/4 inch away from the edge. You can see that we're floating off of the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and push it in a tad. And this is the best way to get the front and the back proportionally exact, is to actually just make your back with the front. So that's it for the main part of the sketch. I'll do a different one for the call outs. All right, bye.